Hello and welcome to this video tutorial on building an application using Theme 2. My name's Anthony and I'll be taking you through all the steps from the very start where we import data right the way through to integrating our Google Map. Before we begin, you may find it useful to have a quick look, just to refresh your memory, on the structure of Theme 2 and how all of the components link together. And you'll find a link to this diagram in the description below. So let's get started. The first thing we'll need to do is to create an application. Next, we'll create an analysis model so we can import our data. From here, I'm going to use the file collector to pull in our test data. And you'll find links to these documents in the description below. Now from here, we can select which worksheet from that Excel spreadsheet we want to pull in. For this demonstration, we'll use businesses. Now the connection's been made, but we haven't pulled the actual data in. But before we do that, let's set up our stream the way we want it. We'll set the period to transactional, as this will be the stream that users update. Next, we'll want to set the audit manual changes so that we record audit information about any changes users make to the data. Now if we save those changes, we'll see we get some additional attributes, and that is a UID at the top, and we get a number of update fields at the bottom which will hold our audit information. The final change that we'll make is we'll change the description from a string that can contain 500 characters to be a big string which has an unlimited amount of data that it can hold. So we'll save our changes and I'm going to pin our stream as we'll be using it later on. I'm just going to update the file importer name to call it something more meaningful. Next, we'll run our stream and we'll import our data. Now if we save our analysis model, that will refresh it and we can see the little icon here indicates that we've pulled some data in. So let's have a look at this in the default view. Fantastic, so we have some data in there, which means we can now start to build an application that will display this. Next, what we'll want to do is to create a dashboard. Now this will be my main dashboard, so I'm going to set it to be open maximized. At this point I'll allow users to resize it and I'll also show the Windows button bars, but we'll take this off later on once we've finished setting up our dashboard. So on the left hand side now we have a blank dashboard, so I'll go down to my palettes and we'll begin by using the complete form. So we now have a form and it has one tile on it, but we'll need another tile in order to display the grid. So let's start by adding our first tile. I want to find this in the layout components. And I can see here I have my tile container and that's where I want to add an additional tile. So holding shift, I'll drag that onto my tile container and this will display my grid in a moment or two. The tile has appeared on the right hand side, but ideally I'd like it to be the first one. So I'll drag that above the first one we had. And the tile container itself, at the moment it's set to be a row, so our data is flowing horizontally. But really I'd like it to be above each other for this one. So I'm going to go into my tile container. And down in the direction, I'll set this to be column. And what we should see now is that our tiles display above and below each other. Now before we continue, I'm just going to select the header and this will open up the dashboard properties. So here I'll be able to edit our dashboard properties that we've already set up earlier. But what I want to do is to use this icon and I'll drag it to the top, and this will allow us to create a quick link to open this dashboard up later on. So next we'll go back to our business data and I'll drag that FX icon onto my tile. And here I'm going to create a grid. And now I will select the attributes that I would like to display on my grid. Now make sure you drag these onto this grey bar here, as this is the header. And we can see the data we imported from Excel is displayed in our application. We'll now move on to the editing area down here at the bottom. So the first thing we want to do is to give this section a header. Now I could give it a static text header, but for this particular example I'm going to use the dynamic text only, so I'm going to delete the static text. What I want to do is to have the dynamic text display the name of the business I have selected in the grid above. And the way that we do that is we give the dynamic text the name of the attribute that we want to display. So here I'll call this name, and later we'll see this get populated. Next, we'll want some field containers that will hold the attributes we'll be updating. So first of all, we'll use the fixed width field collection. And we'll see that that has a fixed width and is the perfect size to hold our attributes. The next one will be a field collection auto size, and this will take up the available space, and these are great for using when we're building up descriptions. So we have these two areas now presented. Next, we'll want to add in our attributes. So as we did before, we will select the attributes, and I will drag these onto my first column. Now what this will do is also set up the backing stream. That's the message we just saw there. Next, we'll grab the description and we'll drag that into the area on the right hand side. And we can see our attributes have been laid out as we want them to be. Now it may be that we've added an attribute that we don't want. For example, we've added the UID here. We might want to remove that. To do this, just select it, right click, and we can delete selected object. So we can see here that actually some of our content is off of the screen, and that's why we've been presented with a scroll bar on the right hand side. We have a few options here. The first is that we can leave it as it is. Alternatively, what we can do is select the area that's holding all of this, remove the auto size, and have the content push the size of the box to what we need it to be. So let's go and find this in the repository. So the tile body is what's holding our content, and if I go into that, we should see that it has auto size set. And if I remove that, then we can see that the box area here has been expanded, and now we need to scroll down to get to our buttons. The final option I'd like to show you in this video is to change the height of the tile. The way that we do that is to select our tile, scroll down to the position settings, and give the tile a specific height. Here I've chosen 390 pixels, and we'll see now that the tile is resized to show all of the content. So it's really just a preference as to how you want to set this up. I'm going to move mine back to auto size and just use the scroll bar when I need to. So once we're happy with these columns, we can remove this border area. So let's go and find those in the repository. Here we have column 1, and if we scroll down to the CSS properties, we'll see that there's a border property that we can remove. And we'll repeat the same process for column 2. Our dynamic text is now taking on the name from the record, and we have the details below. Now if I was to change the selected record, we'll see that this bottom area hasn't updated, and that's because we haven't set up any background filters. So we've got some data being presented. Now what PhixFlow does by default is just to show the first record. So we now need to set up a background filter. Now that's really easy to do. All we have to do is select our UID from the top grid and drag it onto the background. And we're presented with the details on the right hand side. So business data is the name of our grid, and .uid is the attribute from it. And what it's going to do is to filter the records by the UID where it equals the selected business.uid. So that's fine, we'll select that and click OK. And now what will happen is when I select a record, the content is updated. So next, let's update the header at the top here as well. So we'll give this a static text name. This data manager. In this instance, we won't be using the dynamic text, so I'll select that and remove it. Now it may be that you've got an application that you want to build to have a certain look and feel, and so we have our default icon here. So if I select that, what we can do is update this default icon, and we can do that globally if we come into the default icon, and this means that I'm going to add a new icon, and everywhere this style is used, it will now use my new icon. And we'll browse to this. And we can see now that the background image is now changed to new logo. So let's save our changes. And we'll see that in the application, the logo is now propagated out. Anywhere in the application where that icon is used, it will now be this icon. Alternatively, if we just wanted to change one icon and not propagate it out through the whole application, we can select the icon. And rather than updating its shared style, what we'll do is we'll actually just add a style that will override that. It's the same process. We click Add Image, and we'll call this Business Icon. And we can see here that we've overridden the default icon with our new little building icon. So our application is starting to come together here. Let's add in some new data. So I'll click on this new button down here. First, I must lock a dashboard. Alternatively, you can switch into application mode, and both will allow you to edit the data. So here I'm going to click New. This clears my fields, and now I'm able to enter a new business. Now what we're seeing here is that our view that we've set up automatically isn't showing all data, it's only showing the latest data. So we need to now go in and edit our view to make sure it's showing what we expect. So we'll unlock our dashboard and we'll show the view configuration. So there's a few things that we can do here which will be very useful. So we'll start off by showing all of the data. So we come down to the advanced options and remove the number of periods. Save our changes, and now we can see we have all of our data back. Currently the application is using a default sort order, so what we'll do is we'll actually set up a sort order on this as well. So let's go into our default sort order, give it a sensible name, save that, and now we can add an attribute. Let's save our changes and we'll see those get applied to the grid in the background here. As we have the view property still open, let's make a couple of additional changes. So first of all, we'll go back down to our advanced options and we'll choose something called auto save. What this means is that if we make any of our fields editable, PhixFlow will automatically save any changes that we have. So we haven't got to set up any additional buttons or actions, it's all done for us. So let's save that. And now we need to make one of our fields, or any field we like, editable. So here I'm going to open up the name attribute and remove the read only option. Now what this means is I can click into my field, add some additional information, and when I click away it will be saved. Now because I'm not in application mode here, these changes won't be saved. So when I move away you'll get a warning message. It tells us here that no updates will be taking place. So what I'll do is I'll just switch over to application mode and we'll see this in action. And we can see now that that name has changed. We can also add numeric formatting to number fields, such as our annual turnover. Here I'll open the attribute, and under number format I'll choose sterling. Save my changes, and we see that that gets updated in the grid. We can also set date formats, so for example I can click on the customer since, and then from the date time format I'll be able to choose a different format. Save my changes and those are then seen in the grid, and we can also resize any of these columns simply by dragging them. So quite quickly we've been able to build up a very simple application here, and in the next video we'll be looking at how we can add more to this so we can open up additional dashboards, add comments and also integrate a Google map. So I'll see you in the next video.